Here we go.
All right.
Welcome to the Improv Breakdown. I met my guest today in 2014 when I taught his level 6 at the West Side Comedy Theater in Santa Monica. And I have met few, if any, improvisers who were just so determined to learn and grow as much as this guy. He soaked up so much improv, watching it, taking classes, just learning, and transformed himself from someone who struggled with the art form to someone who now regularly performs and teaches it. Beyond improv, this guy's done so much with his life. It almost sounds unbelievable. A few of those highlights: he's traveled all around the world, and I've seen the map with the pins in it. I mean, it's literally all over the world. He flies seaplanes. He's a practicing lawyer. He's a black belt in karate and an internationally published author. Currently, he performs and teaches regularly with Improv City in Orange County, California. I'm honored to welcome the only person I've ever truly called a protege, Breeze Geier. Thank you so much for being on the breakdown.
You're too kind. When I hear you say all those kind things about me, I impress myself.
Dude, you did all the stuff. I'm just recapping it. It's fairy tale almost. So let's start at the beginning, Breeze. At one point, you weren't an improviser, and how did improv make it into your life?
I went to a show at the Santa Monica Playhouse. It was a short form show of some improv group. I guess it must have been about 2006,
Okay.
2007.
Mm-hmm.
And it just looked like a lot of fun. And when I was growing up, we used to sit around our dining table and make puns and play word games, and it just seemed like something I would really enjoy doing. So I got their contact information, and they were way out in BFE, somewhere in the Northeast Valley, just way out there. And so I was never able to really connect with them. And then I found the West Side Eclectic, which was the predecessor of the current West Side Comedy Theater in the alley in Santa Monica. And I took a couple levels of classes there, and I really enjoyed it. I had to go back to Florida for some business for 2 years. And when I came back, the West Side Eclectic was now, or had become the West Side Comedy Theater. And I just started taking classes there and loved the people and loved the challenge and the art. And the rest, as they say, is mystery. My mystery is my story.
So when you saw that improv show, were you going out looking for an improv show, or how'd that happen?
Just looking for some entertainment, and I noticed that there was a show there, and so I rode my bike over and saw the show.
Nice. And so you'd never heard of improv before at that point?
I never heard of improv because when I went to high school and college, there wasn't any improv. Now it's pretty common in high school theater departments and college theater departments. I was a thespian in high school and did a bunch of plays. And my mother's a retired actress, and
So you're kind of familiar with that whole side of things.
yeah, performing and as a trial lawyer, I suppose I was improvising a lot on my feet in a courtroom. Except if I had a bad show, somebody went to jail. So
Well, and you've told me about this before, how you've sometimes watched lawyers go through their questioning of like witnesses or different things like that in court, where you can tell that they've got like a list of questions, they're just making their way through it. Whereas you said that if they were being aware in the moment, it might actually help them be a better lawyer. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
lawyers are, in general, and from my observation, are quite often terrible listeners. When their opponents are speaking, rather than really grokking what their opponent is saying and feeling the significance of that, they're just planning their rebuttal. This is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to say, and they're not really listening. And I have seen it happen many times in a courtroom where something really, really important was missed because the lawyer who was doing the questioning wasn't really listening to the answers.
Yeah. Isn't it incredible how something as simple as listening, which we have to have in improv, just isn't practiced near as much by as many people as I always, because I've been in improv, since I was a teenager. So like to me, it's kind of always in. But like the more I've been an adult now for so long, and I'm like, so many of you aren't listening.
Yeah, that's, I mean, in personal relationships too. I
Okay.
can't tell you the number of times in my younger years that a woman with whom I might have been in a relationship, you don't really hear me. You don't really hear me.
Yeah.
And thankfully, that's something that improv has helped me overcome, along with many other wonderful achievements in my own personal growth.
So speaking of growth, um, I literally don't think I've ever seen anyone uh, kind of run at improv so hard, especially when, like, in Chicago, I'll be honest, like, and I think I've talked about this before, like, I was under the very wrong assumption that was kind of very prevalent at the time amongst improv teachers that if you didn't get improv right away, you probably were never going to get it, right? But you have just relentlessly pursued this art form and went from someone who didn't get it to someone who's mastered it. What drove you to just keep pushing?
I love a challenge, which is why you mentioned some of my accomplishments, uh, like flying seaplanes, for example. Well, I thought, oh, I'll get a private pilot's license. And then I got that. And I thought, well, let me get a commercial pilot's license. It's a little, it's a little higher standard of flying ability. And then I got that, and well, let me get an instrument rating. Well, let me see if I can learn to land a plane on water. So I love the challenge of improv, and I think my biggest challenge with improv, it wasn't so much that I didn't intellectually understand what what I needed to do.
Mhm.
It was I just needed to train myself to get out of my own way
Yeah.
and to really be present in the moment. Because that wasn't something that I was particularly adept at, either growing up or and especially with law school training where you're essentially not so much in the present moment as you are in the moment of what you're going to say and what you're going to do and what record you're going to make that you can argue later on appeal. So I went at it relentlessly because I enjoyed the challenge, I enjoyed the art form, and I enjoyed the people. It
Yeah.
really always comes down to the people. All the great teachers that I've had and the fellow students and the camaraderie. So I think it really motivated me.
Yeah, this sounds like this sounds self-serving, but I feel like the more the I met a lot of people in the improv community than I met people without, and I gotta say, more often than not, the people in the improv community tend to be a little nicer, a little friendlier, a little more just kind of humble and open, and just things like that. That especially in the Los Angeles area that we don't necessarily have as prevalently.
I think also there are a lot of really intelligent and creative people
Yeah.
and involved in improv, and I really thrive around people like that. I really appreciate people who have a different point of view of the world or of even just you take just a suggestion you get in improv and you can have so many different facets and points of view on it. So found it and continue to find it very inspiring.
Absolutely. So, what is like? Go back to when you were first kind of diving into improv. What is like a lesson that you learned pretty soon, pretty early on, that has just stood the test of time with you that you hold true to this day?
Yeah, yeah. I think less is more is one. There were a few lessons, less is more.
Yeah.
But I think that the one that's probably most was the most challenging and always continues to be the most challenging was to just literally let go of any preconceptions, of any desire to move a scene in any particular direction, and just truly be in the moment. And and this lesson I learned from you, and I continue to learn from you, is to be effective. To be effective is that when I first started improv, I had a real hard time connecting to my own emotions.
Mm.
Something
What?
would happen in a scene. I remember once it was on stage at West Side, and the scene partner dropped a baby,
Okay.
and I was like, "Oh, no big," I didn't make any I wasn't impacted or affected by it at all. The coach, I don't remember who it was, but the teacher in class said, "Oh, wait a minute. So your scene partner just dropped a baby. How do you feel about that?" I'm like, "I don't know. Never had a baby. Never had a baby. I have no idea."
I don't know what's it like to drop a baby. I've never dropped one. Is this a bad thing? Does anyone help?
Yeah. So I think it's that to be affected, to have an emotional reaction right away to the things that are happening.
Yeah. And I love the idea of less is more because it's such a cliche that I've heard my whole life, but there is so much truth in it, right? Like you if you play a character, one sentence will probably do all the work you need as opposed to a whole little monologue, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's really true, and it applies really well in life too. And I've been able to apply it in my current part-time lawyering,
Nice.
where it's not so much about just pounding the in a letter, for example, to an opposing attorney, pointing out my point of view on the case. Not so much about just pounding it and pounding it and pounding it. It's more almost teasing it and allowing that person, almost like a scene partner, to find a way to react to it and to draw on it and come to his or her or their own conclusions.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Very cool. So, at what point, as an improv, performer and a student, did you decide, hey, I want to be on the teaching side of this one day?
Yeah, it kind of happened without my deliberate intention.
Nice.
A friend of mine, you might know Matt Gaffney.
Absolutely.
A Sunday, I think it was a Sunday morning improv workshop down in Venice, and he couldn't make it one day. And he asked me if I would be able to substitute. And I thought, yeah, that's great. And then I sat down and thought, well, what am I going to do and how am I going to approach it? And I suppose that throughout my life, I've always been kind of a natural teacher. I just have I'm not bragging about this, but it happens to be a skill that I have, a way of presenting information in a way that people can understand. Which
Absolutely.
is what you do when you're a lawyer too, to a great extent.
Sure.
And I liked it. I love that moment when you can see the light bulb go off in a student's brain. It's like, okay, I didn't get that before, but now I get it because of the way you, the teacher, explained it or the example that you gave. And I think it's very inspiring.
Wow, that's great. By the way, just FYI, in case this comes in the recording, they're doing construction right above me. So if anyone hears hammering or sawing or anything, I'm trying to mute it a lot. But I mean, it's really loud where I'm at. So hopefully it doesn't pick up on the recording too much. So what in improv, we've had a lot of problems historically with women and minorities and so many other things. And another issue that we've had is being ageist, right? This idea of if you're not, but under 25 when you're enrolled in classes, people think, oh, they don't take you seriously as much. Of course, not want to drop any names or anything, but like, what has your experience been like that since you found improv a little later in life?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting. Well, I mean, I live in Los Angeles, so
where everyone's afraid of dying and getting old. Sure.
Everyone's afraid of dying and getting old, including me. And there's always, I think, an issue. And I look back to when I was in my 20s. I'm sure I felt the same way about people who were older. Is that, well, they don't really have anything to contribute, or I can't really relate to whatever their life might have been. So I feel, experienced that. At least it feels like I've experienced that, where opportunities were denied or outright statements were made, and
Yeah.
I think that the way that I deal with it is I can bring a lot because I am the sum of all my experiences, all my thoughts, all of the people that I've known in my life have contributed to my life. And I try to bring that to the stage in the hopes that people will see that I have something more to offer than just the usual tropes of improv that you get, the usual relationships, the usual experiences that people who haven't lived the life I have bring to the stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a tale as old as time. The youth is wasted on the young because, like, as a young person, I think we all kind of think that what do these old folks know, and then you get a little older and you're like, a lot. They know more than everyone because they've lived
Yeah, yeah.
longer, right?
Well, this is a cultural thing, and particularly in this country, but in the Western culture, I've traveled extensively in Asia, for example, and there, older people are revered because they have stories to tell. And you might find this interesting. I saw this actually on Facebook that there's a library in Denmark where you can check out an older person.
What?
And they have a room where you can go in. There's older people there, and you can sit down and have a one-on-one conversation and just learn all about their life and their experience because they actually revere the idea that if you've had life experiences, you have something to give.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a sketch in there of like
Yeah.
just walking up to the desk with an old person. I'm sorry, this is overdue.
Yeah. Right. And it would be like a withered skeleton. I forgot to return, Grandpa.
Oh, all right. Well, that'll be 50-cent fine.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Yeah, I do find that was great. Okay, so what is something that you have learned from teaching improv that really surprised you?
Yeah, the thing that it always surprises me is how difficult it is for some people to grasp even the most basic concepts or to apply them in their improv practice. Just a very simple concept of, let's say, not starting scenes with questions. It's a pretty basic thing,
Sure.
and it's very difficult for people. So, and especially teaching short form, some of the pantomime games and so on, that it seems very simple and an easy concept for me, and it always was, but some people just can't get it. So I guess to answer your question is that there's such a wide range of abilities to grasp the material.
Yeah, and so as a teacher, I'm guessing that the next step is like you see that wide range and you go, okay, I have to be able to blanketly teach to someone who's over here on the spectrum, someone who's here on the spectrum who happen to be in the same class, right? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I can tell pretty quickly just from watching someone do a scene what their particular strengths and weaknesses are. And so I try to tailor the notes to individuals in a gentle way, or sometimes privately. Now we're doing Zoom in a chat or something like that. Because on the one hand, I hate the concept of teaching to the lowest common denominator because I've been in those classes
Yeah.
where not just in improv, but in school and where you're bored essentially because the teacher is teaching to the person who has the most difficulty. But on the other hand, you don't want to leave anybody behind. So you got to find that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got a black belt in karate, right? I got that right, yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've taken, a handful of, martial arts classes and never ascended belts or anything like that. So I know mostly just like survey knowledge about martial arts, but I assume, and I mean, you've even heard me kind of compare different, martial arts philosophies and stuff to improv, but what is I feel like there's probably a lot of overlap there. How does your martial arts training and your improv training kind of coincide?
Yeah, and it definitely does. I trained Shotokan, Japanese style karate for 18 years.
Wow.
When I was a lot younger, beat my body up, of course, paying for it with pain now. But and it took me from being an unfocused, undisciplined person who was literally suspended my freshman year in college from the University of Florida. My grades were so bad because all I did was party. I didn't have any focus. To being someone who is really more focused on a task. But I think to answer your question, the overlap is basics in any art, martial arts, learning violin, piano. You run your scale. I know you like to use the example of basketball, just shooting those hoops. And it's the same thing in Japanese. They call it kihon. It's what we call it in karate, your basics. And you've got to train your basics. You'll never have great skills in any discipline, including improv, if you don't have great basics.
This is so worth repeating because I've talked about this on the show a few times, and I think it should just be talked to over and over and over because it's so easy to look at the basics of improv or anything you're doing as got it, moving on. And it's like, no, these are the things that you as long as you're in this, you take them with you if you want to be good, right?
Yeah. And the trick as a teacher is to make the basics interesting and fun. Because, I mean, let's face it, it's kind of boring if you're playing the piano. It's kind of boring to run those scales, and you're eager to get into the next thing. So there are all kinds of, as you well know, most of them I learned from you, tricks to make the basics interesting and fun.
100%. Yeah. So since you started improv, it's been 2006. It's been 20 or 15 years, 16 years, something like that.
Well, for me, I think it's about, depending on whether you count the improv, the eclectic, those 2 classes, it's like 11 years.
So what have you seen in those 11 years in your corner of improv how has the art form evolved?
That's an interesting question because I haven't been in the same place, same theater setting for all those 11 years. Mm-hmm. I don't really feel like there's been a great deal of evolution that I've been aware of.
Yeah.
I see the same issues in scenes when I watch improv shows. I guess if it's evolved in any way, it's reaching a broader base of people. I had the privilege through Improv City that has a contract that they teach at high school of teaching high school students online on Zoom during the quarantine. And first of all, I was like, what? They have improv in high school? That is so awesome. I didn't know that. And I'm thinking, who's teaching in all these high schools all over the country? How are these people qualified? Where did they learn their improv? What is the quality of it and so on?
Yeah.
But that breadth of population to whom it's now accessible, I think it's probably evolved over the last decade.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember when I first started, Whose Line Is It Anyway was out on TV, but I didn't watch it. It was just on a channel. I just never crossed my radar. And so, improv was, now I think, I'm so immersed in it, who knows, but I think most people have at least heard of improv now, whereas, even 10, 20 years ago, people might not even know what the heck you're talking about.
Yep, that's when something's great, it catches fire, right?
Yeah. So you're teaching right now, you're performing right now. We're starting to open up in the pandemic. Do you have any plans for where you want to take your improv going forward?
Well, I'm scheduled to teach an entry level and 101 class down in Improv City, provided that enough people sign up. Mm-hmm. And they've just moved to a fantastic new theater on Main Street in Tustin. And so they don't have they don't have any history of being at that locale right now. So it's going to be a matter of enough people knowing that they're there and wanting to sign up. But what I'd like to do more teaching. I'm living in Long Beach now, and I'd like to become more involved in establishing maybe a short form curriculum or teaching and held together improv, which is a great improv place here in Long Beach. And I've been asked by someone else who runs a theater in Huntington Beach to teach some workshops there. So I'd like to expand it in that way.
Wow. Wow. Just going all over the place. Just
I'd like to do more performing. I'm just waiting for those offers.
Yeah. Well, if places got to open up first, right?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, hopefully by the time this comes out, you'll have found a venue because this will probably be out in like 6 weeks or 7 weeks or so from now, and it'll be like things are open. We found a place to perform.
Yeah, at least one.
Right.
And I am performing on Sunday nights at Improv City.
Nice, excellent.
We haven't started live shows, but we're starting in like 3 weeks. I think.
Excellent.
3-4 weeks.
So I could probably come up with a couple of these myself for you, but I want to hear what's a character that you play that you've played like multiple times in improv that you still just makes you laugh when you're like, oh, I'm gonna play this guy, or you just it comes out of you and you're like, oh, I'm playing this person, and it makes you laugh.
I love my Goomba. It's like, hey, what are you talking about here? I don't know why. I think I would have enjoyed being a mobster, maybe. I don't know what it is about that. And I also really enjoy my Cajun guy. What you talking about in the state? He's been I'll tell you what, I'd really do that. Yeah, just playing with different characters. I think those two are pretty. The Irishman, the Kennedy. I like to play Kennedy. Just fun stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. Because not everyone plays with voices, right? But like, I remember one of the things right away when I first met you in class was like you always had multiple voices. Was doing like impressions and stuff like that. Was that something that you did before improv, or did you discover that with improv?
I kind of grew up, just not necessarily impressions. I mean, I could do a few. I do audition Kennedy. I mean, next, Kennedy, don't make that mistake again. So I would do fun stuff like that, and doing plays in high school. I put on different voices, and I wrote sketches. I wrote my first sketch in high school. It was about Alexander Graham Bell being interviewed and getting increasingly angry because he kept getting interrupted by the phone ringing.
Love it. This damn invention of mine keeps interrupting.
That damn thing ringing again. and also, I'd say this. The other thing is when I listen to the radio or TV, or even real people, although I don't want to hear me do it. Having grown up in Florida, there were all kinds of different accents, Caribbean accents, Southern accents. And then when I hear one on the radio, I'll turn the radio down and try to mimic the accent, see if I can get it.
I love it. Is there anything about? I mean, obviously, we could talk about improv for hours because you know so much about it. But like, is there anything that's like on your mind right now about improv that you're like, oh man, this needs to be talked about a little bit more?
Yeah, there is actually, and I created a workshop about this, and I drew this from many classes and many teachers, but nobody that I ever attended, nobody's workshop that I ever attended or class ever just like really just said it this way, which is the importance of yes-anding, not the words that your scene partner speaks, but the emotion that underlies the words. Yeah. So I use the example in my classes of you come in and your scene partner says, "You ate my yogurt again." Well, I would say nine out of 10 times the response is going to be, "I'll get you another yogurt," or "Well, you ate my yogurt last week," or "I put my name on it," or "You should put your name on it." Yeah. But I look at the underlying emotion behind that statement and respond not to the yogurt, but to the statement, "You ate my yogurt again. I told you when I moved in I'm a lousy roommate." Nice. And that immediately takes the scene away from the electrons, the yogurt that's orbiting around it, right to the nucleus of the relationship. And I think that could be stressed a lot more.
That is so, because what you said earlier was someone dropped a baby and you were like, I'm not emotionally, what am I? And then now you're teaching a workshop on find the emotion underneath that, right? We don't even have to drop babies. We can just talk about yogurt and there's emotion underneath it.
Well, now I feel everything all the time, and it's hell, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. That's
You know,
what improv will ruin you because it'll make you feel constantly.
it makes you feel constantly, and if you pay any attention to what's going on in the world, it's not always a good feeling.
Oh my God. I love it. All right, Breeze, what do we plug and where you send people want more Breeze in their life? Where do they go?
Well, I do have a website, improvbreeze.com. And on that website, you can contact me. You can see show clips. When I do have shows, I post them on there with links, hyperlinks, so you can just click on it. You don't have to try to find it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be performing in Tustin at Improv City. And we'll see from there. Right now, I'm doing the best I can, considering we were holed up for a year, and I didn't really get to get out and expand.
Yeah, but I mean, you did a lot of online stuff, a lot of teaching, a lot of taking classes, performing. I mean, you really made the most of it.
I think I taught probably close to 600 hours online over the year.
Wow.
Maybe more. Maybe more. I was teaching 2.5 hours on Monday and Tuesday nights for at least a year, and then now here's the other thing is on Tuesday nights I have a workshop. It's free. I ask for donations to help support Improv City, and it's an online workshop on Zoom, and you can contact me about it. It runs from 7:30 to 9:30 Pacific time. By the time this airs, I don't know if it will still be going, but we'll see. You can always contact me about it on my website, improvbreeze.com.
Fantastic, Breeze. It's just it's great having you on the show. I'm so excited what you've done with improv to this point and what you will do with it going forward. I really appreciate it.
I just would like to
Please
say that I've gotten so much inspiration from you. I mean, it's kind of ironic. We're very much alike. I mean, look what we're even wearing.
I know you never dress in red. I never dress in red. We're both like in like a red thing right now. What's up with that?
And I get so much inspiration from the way that you teach and the focus of your lessons and your support. You've always been so supportive and so awesome. It's just really propelled me right along on my journey, and I'm sure others feel the same way. I very much appreciate it.
It means the world, man. Thank you so much. It's an honor to like. I mean, I've had so many students, and most people don't make improv their career, and I don't expect them to. But like when I see a student like you that I've worked with for the 2014 6+ years now, that and to see you just take the ball and run with it as far as you have, it's just. I mean, you've taught me a lot. As well. And so, I mean, it just goes both ways. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Let's keep it going.
All right, let's do it. All right, Breeze, thanks so much for being on the breakdown.
My pleasure. I'm honored that you had me.